first LinkedIn Live talking about packaging and recyclability and all of the fun things we have going on. I'm joined here by my colleague Eric, and we have the joy of helping producers organize data, create reports, and we've been having a lot of conversations, particularly about SB 54 and SB 343 and how it kind of is confusing. And we thought, we're getting all these questions. Why don't we just do a quick LinkedIn Live and talk through things? So we have a few slides to present, and we're going to talk about these two pieces of legislation and why they're confusing and what to do about it. You guys can put comments in and ask questions along the way. We'll try to get to those. And if we don't, we will answer them afterward. Also, if you have other burning questions around packaging, EPR legislation, things you would like us to talk about in the future, feel free to put those ideas in the chat. We're happy to create more content for you guys. And as a reminder, we don't give legal advice, but we're going to get into it. Okay, so we have these two pieces of legislation in California, SB 343 and 54. Eric, do you want to give us a really high level summary of each of those pieces of legislation and what the main point is?
Yeah, no, and Jessie, thanks for inviting me to this LinkedIn Live. You know, it's kind of just to giving before we jump in too far, right? Like how we've been talking like the last, it seems crazy, but the last 6 months. I remember like I found you, I found your website. I'm like, who's this Jessie in Minnesota? I have to learn who she is. And then we met up, right? I think in New York in January at the EPR think tank, which was hosted by Keurig Dr. Pepper and a lot of other great brands. It was a hard, snowy Monday. I know everybody trying to get there, but then we just started having these conversations, right? And so it's really kind of fun to be able to say, invite the world, right, to our little powwow that we simply have like a couple times a week. And so,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the hot topic, right? California, EPR. I know everybody was just getting through the May 31st deadline, like trying to get their reports into the Circular Action Alliance. And now this one this seems to be the next waypoint on the horizon. Yeah. So with State Bill 54 really being kind of this bigger umbrella of, this is the EPR program in California, right, that the Circular Action Alliance helped establish. And so within that, right, you've got the confines of make sure you were able, hopefully brand owners, producers submitted their data from 2023 for their baseline, and then their data from last year, 2025, a mere 4 days ago. So the goal there being that State Bill 54 is really to establish the funding, right? So the whole point of it is that producers are then funding and establishing the California program, which we know most brand owners in the U.S. Last time I checked, California has the most people in the country. And so that's why California is really pushing this, right? So I always think of State Bill 54 of what is it going to cost you? What's your pay to play, right? Your taxes to whatever you're putting into the state of California.
Right.
On State Bill 43, that's something completely different. That's the on-pack messaging, right? Like that's what you're communicating to consumers. And so the difference is State Bill 54 is like the material, the weight, the form factor, whereas State Bill 343 is, well, what are you conveying? What's the messaging on that packaging, right?
Communicating.
Yeah, right?
Cool. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about the conflict. So in State Bill 343, it's the on-pack labeling. How do you communicate to people about what to do with the product at the end? So in order to be able to label something recyclable, whether it's on a label, an H2R tile, even an in-mold chasing arrows symbol, that particular material needs to be recyclable in at least 60% of the MRFs in California so that it can be sorted into the proper streams and then actually recycled. So when we think about all the packaging that has these chasing arrows, you're not going to be able to have chasing arrows or an H2R tile unless that material is recyclable in at least 60% of the MRFs.
Right.
But if it is a recyclable material, but it isn't at 60% yet, but you can't label it, then how do you get it to 60% so that you can get lower fees through the State Bill 54? That is kind of where the conflict is. And I know, brand owners that are taking all H2R tiles off their packaging. They're grinding out chasing arrows in molds.
But this is the moniker, right, of what state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all throw around these acronyms, right? And I know that everybody seems to have like a new a virtual library, right, or a thesaurus of what all these things. But State Bill 343 is the Truth in Labeling Act, and so what it's really, it's not even encouraging. It's now a statutory law. It's not a report. They're trying to change the behavior of producers of what they're communicating on pack. It is the chasing arrows, right? It's vague, it's mysterious, it's manipulative if you don't really convey. Again, truth in labeling is really around, can you verify that what your claim, your marketing statement, if you say please recycle or widely recyclable, like those are what are considered vague. And so the law is helping eliminate that, right? They want truth in the language, the imagery, the marketing claims. So it's no longer a, hey, we want you to wish this forward. Like California's really laying down the law here as far as, hey, if you're going to make a recycling claim, you have to back it up. And then also it matters what you communicate on pack.
Well, one of the problems we have with PCR resins right now is that they're so highly contaminated.
What do you mean?
Well, it's like this wish cycling. Plastic goes in the recycling bin, right? Like that's how people kind of think about things. Like they just don't know. And plus we've made packaging really confusing. Anyway, so then when you get to this reprocessing, right? This creating pellets for future whatever, you don't have like a pure source of resin, of one type of resin. So then when you try to use it in injection molders, or you try to whatever, blow fill, you can't do it because the resin's really contaminated, and it doesn't run through machines correctly or easily. And also in food and beverage in particular, it's difficult to get PCR that's food contact grade.
Oh, I literally had this conversation an hour ago, right? Like they're like, oh, not only have we just did our reporting, now we got to do our source reduction. And the conversation was, Eric, it's great that we have a flexible plastic film. It works. It's cheap. It's effective. There's the food contact. But then to flip that to innovate, right, to get into the new pathway of source reduction, if they were going to swap that out, they still have to maintain their food contact, right? Like that's a living and breathing project every single day, that pain point that these brand owners are going to have to face. Yes. But it goes back to 343, which is like the cousin legislation, which is like, okay, you make that change, you still then have to verify and validate and have the evidence of your of any on-pack communication. So.
Do you know if there's going to be a separate, I don't know how to say this, but is there going to be like a separate agency or some sort of validating factor to prove that it is recyclable, or do you think it'll just be the packaging spec itself?
I think it's just, if you're a brand owner, if you're a producer, you produce yogurt. Let's just pick a yogurt company, just because I love yogurt, by the way. It's just they have to think about that if you have a foil, seal, if you've got the polypropylene cup, if it's a polystyrene cup, whatever it is, it's like the communication, right? So the big thing I see, the big risk, is the resin identification code that's ubiquitous across almost all like thermoform and rigid plastic components.
Yes.
It's like California has put this law, but then there's the conflict is that there's 29 other states that require the resin identification code, right? So it's like, so which path does a brand owner actually then go down, right?
Yeah,
like,
you're not going to do separate molds for California and everybody else.
Yeah, you would essentially have to run your yogurt for California with a certain type of packaging, and then you have to run your yogurt for another certain for Texas or for Michigan or whatever else, right? So brand owners can't afford to do that, right? And so I think that's kind of, I'd say that's where some of the conflict is gonna start coming, kind of bubbling up, because the reality is understanding what to say. And again, there's almost seems like saying, I've heard like, well, should I say nothing? And it's like, well, what's your brand position? Like,
yeah, I know it's confusing. So when we think about kind of describing the SB 54 and the producer responsibility, we kind of, this is kind of the whole like EPR cycle, and people are behind. Some people are not. But really it's what's most important, and what I think is going to be really powerful for brand owners and producers, is to have all of their packaging data in one place, so that changes can be made. You understand your whole landscape, because beyond reporting and paying a fee, like you were talking about earlier, how do we start thinking more strategic about our packaging? How do we redesign? Because really there's a question. It's not just, okay, here is the category of packaging where you're paying your highest fees, so you should go change that. Because the reality of it is, sometimes if you did make a change to reduce your fee, the new film wouldn't run as well on the equipment, and then you would lose throughput. And there's all this kind of like waterfall effect when you change packaging. So it's really hard to just change it, right?
That's going to be the rub, Jessie, right? Like a brand owner, like everybody's trying to scramble to get their reporting, right? Some are like, did I report accurately last year? And that's where I've been helping a lot of food and beverage companies.
Got it.
Now is retroactively like, hey, can you go back and look at my data, so that, because that baseline is what matters. Because now, along with State Bill 54, that source reduction strategy is also due, right? And then reporting out, am I going to be able to achieve, the 10%, the 15 to 25% recycled content goals that the state of California has by 2032. And then again, the flip side of that is what you're communicating on pack, right? So State Bill 54 is, I always tell people, it's the reporting aspect. You have to report your data. You have to say how much are you putting into the marketplace? What type of materials are you doing? And now what's the strategy around, you've got your budget, right? The thing with the source reduction strategy is your 2023 baseline is essentially constricting how much material you can then put in the marketplace every single year. Even if your business was to grow, right? They're still saying your budget material is from 2023. Now there are 5 pathways there, right, to help, again, reduce through redesign, through innovation, adding recycled content, creating reuse systems, and honestly, minimization, right? A lot of it's like designing out the air. I mean, I don't know, Jessie, when you got your packaging degree, but like when I got mine at Michigan State, they told me, Eric, congratulations, be the best packaging designer you can be. And oh, by the way, marketing is going to be your nemesis for your entire career, right? Because they're always saying like, oh, we want to do X, Y, and Z. Well, now the lens is producers, AKA brand owners, right? If you're Costco and you're, one of their top selling SKUs is their ubiquitous water, their Kirkland signature water, right? So they now have to think about every single component. It has a price tag for the decision. And well, what are we communicating on pack? Are we responsible in what we convey to that Costco consumer, right? I'm a Costco consumer. I go there every other 2 weeks for my household. And by the way, fun fact, I used to live in Issaquah, Washington, so it was always kind of fun to drive by their corporate headquarters, but I digress. But the Truth in Labeling Act is like, okay, well, what's the resin identification code on that bottle, right? What California is saying, Costco can't use that chasing arrows anymore. It has to be that isosceles triangle, right? So and that's always been kind of the goal, is to say, look, we want the plastic industry to really understand the impact of what materials in what form factors are widely recyclable. That's the interpretation of the law. And we want producers to produce less, but communicate in a responsible way, an authentic way of what it's the language, right? If you're going to be in a marketing position, you better be able to verify it and back it up.
No, I totally agree. Have you heard when or what next steps are for connecting SB 54 and 343? Like when will the designations, out of SB 54 be included in 343 or vice versa? Because that's
Okay, but my interpretation is that they are separate. They're separate pathways, meaning they're separate.
they are, but
So
they
like,
can't be. How can they be?
they're like cousins, right? Like,
but I think there is this the conflict, or at least the questions I'm getting is if my material isn't widely recyclable, but it could be someday. How do we get it there? Because the rates have to go up. You have to communicate and recycle more to get the rate to match the minimum requirement, right?
yeah, I mean, the goal is really, I treat them as separate entities, right? Like it's like
Okay.
you have to, EPR is like you have to think about what you produce, what you
Yes.
put in the marketplace, and know that you're going to get a bar tab, right? For how many yogurt cups or how many Kirkland Signature water bottles you put into, in the state of California. And then on top of that is the State Bill 54 legislation around the individual source reduction plan, which was also due, by the way. At least what is the plan? Like, what do you intend to do to achieve the recycling rates that the state of California's waste management program has to achieve by 2032? And again, there seems to be a spotlight on single-use plastic because just the infrastructure isn't there today. But that's the whole point of EPR, is to help fund, per your graph online right now, EPR is to fund to build out the infrastructure. Like, I have a lot of people going, well, Eric, are you anti-plastic? And I'm like, no, not at all. Like, it's a balancing act, right? Like, you've got to design your yogurt cup in a way that brings joy and delight, right, to somebody's breakfast or somebody's workout, right, after they want to fuel up with that amazing Greek yogurt like I do.
Yes.
Lemon preferred, by the way. But the packaging afterwards, it's like, you've consumed that yogurt cup and you're like, okay, well, what do I do? What is the consumer needs to know? What do I do with the cup? What do I do with the lid, right? And EPR is now putting the responsibility on the producer of selling that yogurt cup to an Eric or Jessie in California, right? And so that's the fee to play. But now they're saying, oh, we want you to add recycled content. We want you to minimize, if any way possible, the amount of material. We want you to get to that 25% threshold, whether you do it all in 1 year or you do it over the course of the next 5 years, right?
We should do another show on, like, if you've already done a lot of that work in the last year or two, can you count it? We should talk about that sometime.
Exactly. Okay, so I think that's where brand owners are actually, I think a lot of brand owners are like, can I just like crazy item? Can I get this done all in one shebang, right?
Okay, so the question, do you understand how to translate the material categorization study into materials that meet the qualification to be called recyclable?
Yeah, so what CAA, or the Circular Action Alliance, has done is they actually have what they call a covered material list. So they're in that, as they literally outline like what material is considered widely recycled. So there's a whole group, a whole category that is saying, hey, these are covered, meaning that these are the ones that if you're in that swim lane, it's great. It's the other ones, right? The others that they're highly scrutinizing the materials or the form factors, because those substrates and those form factors, you can't put it in your compost bin. You can't put it in your recycle bin because they've already identified that. So CIA, if you go into the portal, there's literally a blueprint of like a roadmap of what to do.
Yeah, and I think that's important to understand too. If you log into CAA, there's a lot of different materials that are not publicly available.
Yeah.
And so if you have questions about EPR and about how states are handling it, you have to kind of ask the person who's registered with CAA so you can get into your own portal and do some hunting around for information.
Yeah, and I'd say Circular Action Alliance has done a really good job too of like, there's a lot of scenarios, right? Like you can go in there and go like, I make this product. This is what I do. Mm-hmm. What's the condition, right? Like that's what I love about CAA is they're not there to just carry a big stick and like penalize everybody on behalf of the state. They really want companies to change, right? Just get on board with the legislation, because it's all for the better, right? It's all about, again, improving your packaging improving your packaging, improving your company brand reputation, and being part of the solution and not part of the problem.
And reducing the footprint. And
yeah, totally.
The only way recycling is going to really take off is if it's stupid easy. And so I think
be careful.
Well, you know what I mean, right? Like,
no, totally. Well, we always had this in my REI era, when I used to work and manage the packaging program there was this the R&D team or the product development team. They're like, be careful, don't make it idiot proof, because they'll design a better idiot, right? Like, it's like you just have to be very, very careful, right? Like, know what you have to do.
It's just really complex right now, and hopefully moving to some of these different ways of thinking about packaging, making things more recyclable, communicating better. This slide just kind of covers what we've talked about right now in terms of, where are you communicating? I think some people don't realize, like, all the different places where the packaging, recyclability, or what you're saying to people appears in all different areas, that you just kind of have to double check if you're going to change the way you're talking to people. And really kind of, maybe this answers some of that previous question too, between 343 and 54, how we connect them, and getting into EPR reporting and fee modeling is really important. And I know EPR is pretty, like, labor intensive, especially right now when most people don't have their packaging data in one place. Most ERP systems don't have a great packaging module. Packaging is just like
fragmented. It's all like somebody's got it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then somebody else is well, I've got the material weight over here, or with our supplier, right? Like, it's
absolutely
not, the goal is, the other acronym is SSOT, which is single source of the truth. Like, you want all of your data in one spot, because once you do, you can manage it. You can help then do your reporting. You can actually then, what I love about after you're done reporting is that you can go back to your data and it reveals the opportunities, right? Like what you're paying per substrate, per form factor, per state. And then if you identify, well, how much are you paying because of that decision? What if you make a change, right? Yeah. Like, what if you, I don't know, Dannon Yogurt makes transparent aluminum for their yogurt cups, right? And like, they've innovated and now they've got a new substrate. Well, now they know, oh, we're able to reduce our fees, which in some ways can help pay forward to get to the innovation as well. At least
yes. Related to that, not directly to this, but Frito-Lay invested a lot of money into compostable film, extruded compostable film, which is an amazing innovation, because extruded film can be commercialized, layered film can't be. All the layers come from all over the world. But if it hadn't been for them to invest all this money, then we wouldn't have this opportunity to have this film, right? So when you think about brands and the power that they have, when opportunities come up, they're able to invest and make it widely available. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it sounds like they know exactly, like, they've seen the opportunity, right? There's a financial, not only do they have a statutory requirement of they're mitigating the risk, but now they probably revealed, right? Like, oh, if we continue on with that current state, the status quo, we're going to continue to pay that year and year. Or worst case scenario, worst day ever for a producer is that they got a product on shelf, and at some point that packaging material may be banned, meaning that they'd have to we have to take everything off the shelf because you didn't meet the deadline. Which is a great thing here about, like, how fast this is moving, right?
I know, it's moving so fast. So this, we're just kind of outlining, like, when 54 was signed, the covered materials list, the 343, and now really the source reduction of 2032.
Yeah, that's really, if you want to move backwards, right? I always say, look, I'm the one that reads the last page of the story of the book, so in case I die, I know what happens. But like, it is that, right? Like, we're all chasing 2032. And I know companies are like, it's out there. That's really far away. I'm looking at my watch, like the amount of time it's going to take a brand owner to change aspects of their packaging to be compliant of what the regulations are in 2032. You got to start moving backwards, right? Like, work backwards from there of like, what are all my derogations? What are all the aspects of my packaging that are a problem, right? Like won't be recyclable by 2032. And then from there, you just start building out these roadmaps, right? Of how do I get there, right? Like between today, June 3rd, all the way there to 2032, January 1st.
And a lot of people should say everyone should have some sort of roadmap for packaging projects for cost savings, so that when you do design work, you can work on your packaging as well and thinking holistically. So now if you're going to do an update to a formula, or you're going to make some other change, like talk to a packaging engineer about it, talk to somebody in packaging, see if there's opportunities to make your carton a little smaller. How many more boxes could you get on a pallet? Really, you should almost be able to pay for a lot of your EPR fees and cost savings projects year over year, because you should have a cost savings pipeline, whether it comes from operation efficiencies or supply chain efficiencies. Packaging really touches every area of the business. And I think that's why sometimes it gets lost, because everyone just kind of takes care of packaging as it kind of comes into their lane. And a lot of people don't think about it holistically, because it can be really complicated and technical. And you need nerds. You need nerds.
Yeah, we nerd out all the time, Jesse. No, and it's, I mean, the reality is like, it's a lot of companies some companies, God bless them, right? Like they've got full packaging engineers and designers.
Yeah.
Others don't, that small company that, again, not to say they're a startup, but like a lot of companies here, I look back in 2022, the hardest part is many companies right now, they weren't even aware, right, that these laws are real. And I've even had conversations with them. So is this something we actually have to do, or is this something? I'm like, no, this is absolutely what you have to do this.
Yes.
But again, there's just obviously, we offer assistance and consulting and redesign and testing and beyond. But there's a whole bunch of household names that can do this. But again, that I'd say plan for the window. I love your plan ahead call out here, Jesse, because it really is that to get the work done. Like I would not underestimate the effort that it's going to take to not only report, but then build that source reduction strategy, look towards the future, and then listen to your retailers, right? So if you're a producer, like sit down with your retailer and have them help you, right? Like we've seen this a lot where a lot of times the retailers are like, oh, we need you to do X, Y, and Z. And then the brand owner's like, well, why? Tell me more. And it's like, well, there's this law and we have to do it. And by the way, you are a co-packer of ours and you manufacture said spaghetti sauce for us, and that jar and that glass jar and that metal lid and the PSL that goes on the jar, like all of those have to be measured and calculated as decision points. Everyone has a price tag. And now that private brand, that retailer is like, we're going to come back to you and get the data. We're going to come back to you, manufacturer, supplier, whatever it is. Like hopefully it's a partnership. Like I want people to understand, like, this isn't retailers can't go, well, you have to just comply or die. Like those that really partner with their suppliers are really going to advance. Right. Are going to widen the gap for those that don't.
Well, and if you think about even a shelf life test, if you want to pull nylon out of your pouch because it's a flavor protector and now you want to move to something recyclable, it could take 6 months to a year to complete shelf life testing and any iterations that you need to do.
Right.
And so that's kind of to your point earlier, is just planning now is really, really important.
Well, it's like, your comment about like line trials and such, right? Planning for the engineering that you're going to have to do. Yes, absolutely.
I know we're coming up on time here. So I'm going to like cruise through some of these here. And just, you help with EPR reporting. We help with EPR reporting. That's why we talk so much, because we're helping brands every day try to navigate this and figure this out, because it's difficult right now, but as you get more and more and more states involved with different laws everywhere, it's just going to become cost prohibitive and risky to just do it all by yourself. And it's really not the way to leverage the bigger brains that are literally focused on this. And remember that EPR is forcing everyone to get their packaging in one place. And that is very, very powerful when it comes to finding savings and efficiencies and ways of doing things better, and really building business cases to get projects done. Because often packaging just kind of like floats out there. They don't get a designated line in the budget.
Packaging has traditionally been an afterthought in the product development cycle.
Yes. Sure. But if you can come with a business plan that says, okay, we're gonna choose to do these feasibility level of these projects or discovery level of projects to find savings, to see what's out there, and then you can get a business case out of that for savings. It really helps people and teams think strategically and get good work done in packaging. So looking at the comments. Okay, Leah, we'll follow up with you. I see I misunderstood your question. I'll get back to you. But anyone else that has questions you'd like us to answer or ideas for show topics in the future, connect with us on LinkedIn. We'll be sending out this recording so you can watch it again, eating popcorn. And we look forward to kind of unraveling more of these complex EPR topics in the future. And thanks for joining.
Yeah, Jessie, thanks for inviting me to your dialogue. And remember, that mantra is you can't manage what you don't measure. So we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Let's go get it.
Now.
Okay.